Are you getting there?
Mm-mm. Can I just put the app on?
Well, it's a two-factor authentication,
Oh, yeah,
so
that's
I
why they have
think
to
it
go
has
through.
to be on
Yeah,
your
you're
phone.
right. What was it called? Microsoft?
Microsoft Authenticator.
There we go.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda as it's presented. Is everybody okay with that? I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved?
The,
The regular agenda?
Yeah.
oh, the regular agenda, okay,
Yeah.
yes. Second.
Okay, so there was a motion by Rick, seconded by Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item up is consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
before anyone is- I do have one quick addition. I
Oh.
added it to packet up there for you guys. It's payable for golf.
Yep.
An invoice that, got missed when they got submitted over to us. And so we need to get this paid so we can keep getting food deliveries over there. It is to Hermel Wholesale for a total of $36,181.25.
Okay,
That's,
would go into the payables,
That would go in
claims
the
for
So,
payments.
claims for
Yes.
payment.
so that in, the agenda would have to be revised to add that to the dollar amount?
Yes, so it would just be added to the claims for payment under the consent agenda.
Okay, so then that will be amended?
Yes.
Yep. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Can I look at your copy, Maggie?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, my
Computer
laptop
won't
made me
work.
change my password and then I didn't have time to get the authenticator app and code and. Gotta remember where it was.
Well, while you're looking for yours, I'll ask my question on the financials. There was an entry under the golf, section, $1,000 in catering paid to Kurt. Do we have any detail on that of why he would be reimbursed for catering?
So I am not entirely sure of that answer off the top of my head right
Okay.
now, but it's certainly something I can get to you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. It's just I hadn't seen that
Yep.
in these number of years, and so I wasn't sure the purpose behind it. So thank you.
My question was on, section 3, or on page 10, I guess. Fund 233, the special review for crime prevention, it looks like we had ordered some just marketing stuff, for about $1,100, but that Fund 233, I couldn't recall what that was.
The 233,
Yeah,
that's a fund we use for, we use it for the crime prevention and then the school stuff too. So we get like bracelets and stickers at the school too. By the school and partially funded by the city.
okay. Where is that in our budget, that Fund 233? I'm not opposed to it or anything, I think it makes good sense, I don't recall ever seeing 233. So
Again, I'll have to go look that up. So generally, your tax revenues are coming from your Fund 101,
yeah,
which is your general fund. So I'll have to go up and look and see exactly where our revenues for 233.
okay, I don't know if anybody else on the council, does that ring a bell to you, Fund 233?
It does not.
Okay, so how big of a fund is that? I mean, is it something that we're just taking money out of our general fund and then putting it in that? I'm just kinda curious what that total dollar figure is.
Check exactly how that was funded in the past, and we can talk about it in the next meeting,
Okay,
during the budget meeting, yeah.
and then, I noticed there was on page 9, there was also a Duck Cup sponsorship under the police department for $200, which I totally support and I'm happy for. I'm not questioning it, but again, would that come out of that marketing fund? Because it just says it was, yeah, now my pages are, I'm sorry, Maggie, your pages are all screwed up for me trying to find this stuff.
We'll
but
take care of it, don't worry.
That's
It was under police, I guess.
yeah, that's a separate fund that we use for civic donations, so we do 2 sponsorships every year, one to the Duck Cup Memorial and then one to the, Choose Not to Use, used to be the Meth Task Force,
Okay,
for their golf tournament and their fundraiser, which supports the Choose Not to Use program in Scott County.
okay. So my question was, so this was under police, it wasn't under Fund 233, was that, are those
It's
commingled or are they?
So that one's coming out of the general fund, though we do have quite a few different revenues going into the general fund.
Okay,
And, yeah, we can certainly review that as we go into the various, ways that our police department is, funded.
okay. And I'm not against any of it, I'm just very curious, I was just curious, I hadn't recalled seeing that in the overall budget, so, okay, thank you for answering that question.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I take a motion to approve the consent agenda with the additional payment of the 36,000 added to the, claims for payment. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Maggie
Second.
and seconded by Sean. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The public is invited now at this point to be heard on matters not on the agenda. And you would have 5 minutes to speak if you'd like to address the council. It's not on the agenda. Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm gonna move on to the city engineers project update. Are you gonna take that, Matt?
Yep, I just got 2 updates on here. Last week, we sent out the construction update, and we were planning on paving today. Obviously, the weather delayed that, so paving now is planned for Thursday, and that would be for Lindale Avenue North and First Street. Pretty much whatever has curb on Lindale and First Street, that's what they'll be looking at paving. The other thing I wanted to point out is this Thursday is a 2025 CIP neighborhood meeting. It's the first time we meet with the neighbors for potentially a project next year in their development.
Okay,
That's all I had, unless you had questions.
all right. Anybody have questions for Matt?
No.
Okay, so the next item that has substance is the ordinances for adoption, and this is the second reading of ordinance number 350, an amendment to interim ordinance 23-338, authorizing a study and imposing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses within the city of New Prague. I take a motion to approve the second reading.
So moved.
I'll second.
Sean made the motion, and Maggie made a second. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The next item is a resolution granting approval to the final plat of the I'm sorry.
Should've just listed it as Benny edition.
Yeah, the Benny edition, that would have been nicer. The Stenison edition consisting of 3 lots of 4.1 acres, Lanesburg Township, Minnesota. So there's been a resolution that's been prepared.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a little bit of background on that. So since the planning commission reviewed on July 24th, we did have city attorney finish his review of the final plat and the title opinion, and the county surveyor actually signed off on the final plat as well. So pretty much every contingency is taken care of that would typically hold up us signing the plat. So I would recommend moving forward with final approval of the resolution tonight.
All right. Any questions of the council? Hearing none, I would take a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion by Rick, seconded by Sean, to approve resolution 24-08-05-02. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item up is approving or denying a variance for Kubish Furniture and Flooring Building.
Yep, so I'll have a summary PowerPoint here that I'll put up on the overhead. Mitch, if you could pop that up there. All right, so another planning commission item from the July 24th planning commission meeting. So we had a request for variance V4 2024, which is a variance from two specific items in the downtown design guidelines. Number one, for having a proposed metal awning. And then number two would be to allow brick to be covered in the downtown area. And we'll talk about the specifics of each of those items here in a minute. But in a nutshell, Randy Kubish and his wife Lisa are proposing to do some modifications to their building, Kubish Furniture and Flooring at 133 West Main. Really what they're trying to achieve is a more modern and appealing look. That would include adding that metal cable awning, and we'll show you a rendering of that in a minute, which does require a variance, along with a variance for covering all of the existing brick that is on the building today that obviously you see when you drive by the building. Staff noted during the review at the Planning Commission that zoning ordinance section 726 does require preservation of masonry and prohibits covering of any original brick to maintain the historical character of the B1 district. And then also noted that the awnings are noted that they should be made of cloth or canvas. The one that's on there today is obviously plastic and doesn't meet the ordinance as well. So that's the reason for the two variances. Zoning ordinance actually specifically in a couple other areas notes that masonry and other services shall be preserved. Brick shall not be covered with stucco, shakes, or other veneer. And then finally it notes under that same section when you have a severity of deterioration where you have to replace any design item of a historic building downtown, you have to replace it with a new feature that would match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where reasonably possible with the same materials. So those are the criteria in the zoning ordinance that we looked at on that meeting on the 24th. Also pointed out in the existing comprehensive plan, we have a statement that the historic character of the downtown district, specifically noting that brick is a unique feature to the downtown district. And the new comp plan, even though we haven't completed that, does also contain a statement that the maintenance and preservation of unique character of the downtown New Prague is due to its historical and cultural significance. So again, not getting as specific into the brick as the actual ordinance, but again, noting those preservation type statements in the comprehensive plan, both old and the proposed new plan. Also, before we had the meeting with the Planning Commission on the 24th, staff had met with Dennis Dvorak, who's in the audience here tonight, as well, to basically get his input. He had written the downtown reconnaissance survey back in 2015, provided basically all the information on the history of every building downtown, including architectural features that exist now or were maybe removed in the past. So pretty comprehensive review document for us to refer to. Mr. Dvorak indicated, and we relayed this at the Planning Commission meeting, that he believed that the covering the brick would erase an important architectural feature of the period, and to better represent the period, they had proposed on their initial rendering some Osceola prairie stone. He thought that that wasn't appropriate for the district, and we'll show that in a minute. And the Planning Commission also recommended that that stone wasn't appropriate and asked for a brick version of the rendering, which we'll see in the presentation here tonight. And then also another thing Mr. Dvorak noted was that there's kind of a false wall adding height to the building, and he recommended that the cornice on the very top of that false wall should be flush with the building rather than the more decorative angled version that they show in their renderings. Ultimately, we did have a lot of discussion with the applicant, Mr. Kubish, and the Planning Commission did ultimately pass forward a recommendation for approval on a 4-0 vote. And the two conditions that were noted at the meeting that the Planning Commission wanted considered were to give you the opportunity tonight as council to look at two different renderings, one showing the Osceola prairie stone and then another one showing a brick option on the elevations. And then the other one was to have Mr. Kubish provide documentation from the Historical Society of Minnesota and his contractor, brick contractor specifically, documenting that either the brick is not available or a suitable alternative is not available or a viable option. Further noting that the brick is deteriorating, delaminating, and continual maintenance issues. So Mr. Kubish did submit items for review that are in the packet. I'll provide a summary, and certainly can ask Mr. Kubish to provide a summary of those materials as well. But we'll go over a summary of those again here tonight. So Commissioner Ryan, you obviously know from the Planning Commission meeting that you had asked for the two new versions. So here's on the top visual, the current building today with the non-conforming plastic awning. And then the two on the bottom are really what they're proposing to do. The difference between these two, and was what the Planning Commission asked for, is the version on the left shows the brick along the bottom of the windows, and it actually wraps around the side of the building a little bit. The one on the right shows the Osceola Prairie stone, and that's what the Planning Commission at least wanted to see how the two differ. I believe the brick look is more of what they were going for. So that's the front elevation. We'll do a comparison on the west elevation here as well with those two same materials. So again, with these two elevations, you've obviously got pretty much every bit of the existing brick being covered up completely. And that's where there's obviously the variance needed for that. Staff did want to call out, we actually don't have any issue with that cable awning that's metal. There was a photo we'll show in a minute here, but there's kind of a historic tie back to that, having been a similar item being in the building in the past. And we also don't have an issue with the height of the building, adding some visual appeal to that corner that building anchors there. So wanted to note that as well. Couple other photos. Here's just a more of a close-up of the Osceola clean brick, as it is called, versus the Osceola Prairie stone. It's more of a classic look with that brick than that stone. And then they're also planning to just change out the front door to this glass type door that you see there, and then also the light sconces, which they're proposing on the elevation at various locations that you saw in the rendering, to provide more architectural appeal. And again, staff doesn't have an issue with the lights on the building as well either. A lot of information on this slide here, and I'm sure Randy will want to address it, but this tried to summarize the information that Randy brought forth since the Planning Commission review. Number one, we had a letter in the packet, hopefully y'all had a chance to read that, from Kreuzer Construction with Josh Kreuzer, and then Albrecht Brick and Masonry, providing information that the little brick, I don't know if you can even see it, I can't see my highlighter there, kind of the photo right to the right of the text there, there's some modular brick that's shown. That was kind of the closest they could find to match. It's a little bit smaller in size than the standard brick that would be the historic brick on the building. Color's a little different as well. So their letter noted that they believe that the information from that brick, they would have some concerns about the stacking of the brick and then larger mortar joints as well. The one thing I do note, Mr. Kubish had contacted the Historical Society, and they recommended that he check with the Gavin Historical Brick Company or the Historic Stone Company. And maybe Randy can address this later. I don't know if they noted if they had any available brick in an alternative to the modular brick, but I just wanted to note that. Again, Randy's letter and his information noted that this example's from a building in Belle Plaine, actually, that Albrecht worked on with some replacement brick, and you can tell it's been replaced with different brick. There's no question about that. I think the big question is, and as the applicant has noted, that they believe that that wouldn't be as attractive, in their opinion, as it would to just do the new facade with the new brick, the new materials. I know from a staff perspective, certainly what this was done for repairs over there in Belle Plaine would certainly meet our ordinance in repairing or replacing brick with like materials. So from an ordinance standpoint, that would certainly meet the ordinance and not require a variance. Regarding the question that came up with the planning commission regarding Albrecht not recommending pulling brick from, let's say, the west side of the elevation, the longer elevation, and replacing that on the front, and then doing the repairs with, we'll say, not as matching brick on the west side. They noted specifically in their letter that they thought that would be difficult to do and cost over $140,000 just for the labor on that type of a project. So the one thing I do not know, and maybe the applicant can address it, is what the cost difference between doing that and the proposed plan with the covering the brick, what the cost difference is there. Again, cost is only one part of a variance consideration, but would be good to know that information. And then the brick and building contractor noted that they believe covering the brick would keep the structural integrity of the building intact and kind of waterproof it as well, because they note there'd been some water intrusion, particularly on that west elevation, kind of along the edge where the bricks were popping the faces off of the brick on the building there. Couple other slides here. So this is kind of indicative of the type of metal awning feature with the cables that hold it up that they would propose. Staff actually doesn't have any concerns in general with that type of awning in the area. And as you can see in this picture on the right side of the photo, you can see the front of the building with a little bit different type of metal awning, but it is cable supported. So the idea and the general look is a historic type of awning that had been on the building, 30 plus years ago. So what we have tonight and what we put in the packet, we prepared kind of three different options for consideration. Number one being tabling the discussion or actually sending it back to planning commission if you'd like to do that, to take some more time to review additional information, focusing on the brick repair, replacement, and preservation. That would remain staff's recommendation as it kind of had been at the planning commission meeting. Randy may have new information to shed light on that here tonight though. And then number two would be staff's original recommendation alternative that was in the packet, which would be a resolution for denial. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend taking that action because that would prevent any new variance application for being made for 6 months. So that would kind of put the brakes on everything for 6 months, and I don't think we want to do that necessarily. And then number three would be considering the planning commission's recommendation to approve that resolution in the packet that has the approval statements, but I would recommend if there are specific portions of the rendering that you like or don't like to be very specific and add those as conditions to that resolution as part of the approval if that's the route you would like to take tonight. So whether it be you like the brick version versus the stone version or other design elements that maybe aren't in that rendering, we should be specific on that. So hopefully that provides a decent overview. I'm gonna back up to the renderings here, 1 second. I'll just put the renderings up at the front that show the two different options of everything basically being covered up. And with that, I could stand for questions. We have the applicant, Randy and Lisa here tonight, and then Dennis Dvorak, if you have any questions of him as well.
One question that comes to my mind is why is the 1946 building considered historic? Is it historic based on the Minnesota Historical Society's criteria to say that it is?
So it's historic in that any building in the downtown district at this point, the way the ordinance is written, has to follow the standards that are in the ordinance. So we know at the planning commission meeting, I didn't show the examples here tonight, but there's a couple of buildings that in downtown either never had brick, so we don't even have the ability to preserve brick in those buildings. You have some other buildings built in the 50s that had, we'll just say concrete masonry units, cinder blocks, but they all follow the same ordinance. So if they're looking to change from what that is today, these ordinances always apply.
Okay, because I noticed a couple of the buildings in the downtown, I mean, they don't fit what I would consider the historic look, and we all, I'm sure, know what those buildings are.
Well, and just so some of that too, Maggie, is we have to remember that at this point, a building built in 1946 is 80 years old.
Yes.
And so,
Oh.
while we all love the historic building of 1852, there is a time period of the 40s and 50s, and maybe Dennis could nail that down better, but there might be a look from the 40s and 50s or 60s and 70s that at some point you may never look at it and go, that is that beautiful 1853 building, but it's certainly historic because it's built in a time period style of that particular.
Joshua, and I perfectly understand that. I've been around a little bit longer, so I get that. And I'm looking at the current building, and it actually doesn't, to me, this is just me talking. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to any constituents about this, obviously, but the building the way it is today, to me, does not fit the downtown look. The renderings that I'm seeing, and the one with the brick in particular, I think really captures more of that old-time look. It's almost a little bit more like Art Deco, in my opinion. And I'm no architecture, you know, so, you know, maybe I've got my periods wrong, but I think the rendering fits so much better in the downtown area than the current building does today. And so I don't see anything wrong with what I'm seeing is in the renderings, without the stone, but the brick, so that the brick kind of fits in with the downtown. I don't know if the other council members have any other opinions, so just based on what I saw in the packet today.
No, well said, Maggie. I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that's what came out of the planning commission. We debated this for about an hour and 20 minutes, I think. And we ultimately approved it because we knew it was gonna sit with this board, whether the planning commission approved it or denied it anyways. And I agree with you, I like that, that clean look too. I think where the questions that we had were, number one, is there possibly something else that we could do? And I think Randy did the due diligence and contacted the Minnesota Historical Society. And then we had asked Ken to invite Mr. Dvorak as well, because he was, as the town historian, he's very knowledgeable on, well, putting together the ordinance. When did that go in, 2015?
The downtown reconnaissance survey, I think it was 2015 that you finished writing it, yeah.
Okay, well, I remember I was on the council at the time, and it certainly seemed like a good idea, but yet we didn't want to make this whole project overly expensive for a business, and we wanted to kind of support the business too. So we were kind of trying to find a happy median. And we really, since it ultimately sits with this board, we approved it to pass on so we could get this information. And so I would like to hear from Dennis, if you could speak, and I appreciate you coming out tonight. You certainly didn't have to. It's very kind of you. And then Randy, maybe you could elaborate to the council too a little bit of some of the information that you found out. I know it was in the packet, but that might spur some other questions from other council.
Yep, come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
My name is Dennis Dvorak, and I am happy to be here this evening to support both Randy and the city and the efforts they are making to establish guidelines for Main Street, which is a great avenue of buildings that reflect New Prague's history. In regard to the building, it's a mid-century modern. And so, yes, it doesn't fit the Victorian building next door, which was the Kokesh Saloon, built around 1885. But the building is historic because it reflects the period in which it was built, 1946. And the building reflects the thoughts and ideas that were brought over from Germany after World War II to streamline America. In other words, going to a rectangular image or format and elevation, and where less is more, instead of some of the buildings downtown where the brickwork is far more elaborate, which follow the idea that more is better. So less is more reflects the mid-century modern. In terms of the building, I think the plan and the elevation that Randy has come forward to has merit. The awning follows the streamline element, and in looking at mid-century modern architecture today online, and examples of it, that is common, as well as the cornice being capped with metal and element to not only streamline or accent the streamlined element of the building, but it adds a kind of a visual element as well, which is pleasing. The building is obviously suffering from spalling, which is a result of thawing and freezing. Some of the brick is flaking. And when I was approached by the city, I referred them to the Minnesota State Historical Society, which offers a lot of information and help free of charge. As an example, I was approached by the Back and Neck Clinic in regarding to the Obremish building, and they offered ideas and help free of charge. And when Karen Lamplats was, and I was working with her on the hotel, the Broche Hotel at one time, there was that same question dealing with the mortar and the color of the mortar. So this was the logical step that I felt was necessary and requested of me. So it's you know, you have to be careful to not characterize this as not as being a non-historic building. It was a part of the Kaiser and Fraser automobile dealership that Mr. Dvorak had in the beginning of the late 40s and beginning of the 50s, and specifically the windows of this building, which were slanted, were removed, and I had to bring that forward to Mr. Ondich, and this, so the building was already altered without being not following the ordinance of historical preservation. It was indicative of the period of that of mid-century architecture was to have large expanses of windows and to bring the outside in to the interior. So that is certainly reflective of that, and I would hope that Randy considers tying the two buildings together, which I will discuss with you later, but with him later. But it's just it's not a great piece of architecture, and I agree with you. But then who defines what's good and great or bad or indifferent or just average? I mean, it's personal choice, and it's like going to a country buffet years ago when I used to take the kids there on field trips, and I said, this is your choice. You make the choice. And everyone's palate is different, and everyone's eye is different. So the challenges that you have as a city council going forward, we're going to be, I turned 81 this summer. I always use the the thought that I don't have much time left, but I just like to have the idea that I gave my 2 cents and tried to preserve some of Main Street that makes it very, very unique. And we do have a unique downtown, and it needs to be preserved. It needs to be addressed. When I did my historical reconnaissance survey, many of the businesses have changed hands, and with each new ownership comes different ideas. And so that's why you are here, is to have a framework for each individual that purchases buildings and has exchange ownership, that they follow some established guidelines. And I really commend you on doing that, because it's exceedingly important going forward, so that future generations can look to our decisions as those that try to establish some good thoughts. Across the street, as an example, I don't know what the building is. Is it it's a bungalow that was built on the corner where the old Hodich Meat Market was. That was it's an atrocity. For you talk about Main Street and keeping the character and historic character, that's an abomination. And well, it functions, but it certainly doesn't fit into making the city a charming, and the Main Street a charming place to call home. So I don't know if that answers any of your questions, but that's how I envision it. And I'm always happy to help the city define or to recommend things. I don't have any invested interest in this other than aesthetic and having a historical interest. So I walk a tightrope. I compliment Randy for taking on old buildings along Main Street and all the challenges renovation, and such as the movie theater and other, in the Reebok building, all the things that come with an aging building. It's kind of like our body, right? Sometimes we need a little tune-up. So I also want to compliment him on the fact that he's utilized the second floor of these buildings and for creating rental properties, because once that second floor begins to deteriorate, then the bottom floor goes. And I think that's been a challenge for him, but I'm always very pleased when I see that, because all of the store owners and businesses along Main Street lived above or behind their businesses, and it's part of New Prague's history as well. Those walls talk. So, do you have any questions of me?
I do, Dennis, just real quick, because I want to reference something that Maggie said, because I kind of feel the same way she does, is that it does have an Art Deco look, which would be kind of late 40s, 50s.
No, Art Deco was 30s.
20s?
Late 20s,
Okay.
early 30s. It's not Art Deco.
Okay, all right. And again, I'm not a architect either, so I apologize for getting the periods
No,
wrong.
no, it's okay.
But, so,
Apologize.
I mean, I have to admit, I think it does somewhat feel like it ties in a little bit to it, and it certainly looks, at least with the bricks over the stone. What is your opinion? It's too far out from that, or it's too different? I don't know if I ever got, because at one point you said I kind of commend him, I like,
Oh, the overhang, which can, over the entrance, I like it much better than what's there now. I mean, it's very simplistic and it's streamlined and follows the line of the building. It's 20th century, mid-century modern. So I had to kind of chuckle a minute when the concept that came forward from Randy and his wife was to make it look more modern. Well, it's more modern than he probably realizes, because it was a new attempt after the war to bring modern ideas into America. But the main thing is the spalling on the outside of the exterior of the building, and to paint it would be inappropriate. So that's why when I was approached by Ken, I referred him to a contractor that does architectural restoration. And I contacted them today just to see if they had been approached by you, the city council, or by Randy, and they said they had received a contact from Randy, and so that's a one step forward, but at least it solves and answers questions as to what can be done. They can come out and do an evaluation for free. So I would suggest not trying to delay the project, but the more input you can have, the better you might have, or he might have, and you might have a way of preserving buildings of this type in the future. See, some of the buildings downtown are made with Chaska brick. It's a high fire brick. And so that was done after the railroad came in 1877. Some of the buildings were made of soft brick. They were bricks that were fired in the backyard, and then they're soft and they're very porous, such as the event center down by next to the West End Liquor, the old Mertz building. So, no, I think that I think it's good that what Randy has done to also utilize lighting, because that draws attention. I don't know if you've noticed this when you drive along the highways in the rural areas around New Prague. Many homeowners flood their houses with lighting from the soffits around the exterior. Well, it draws attention, you know. Sometimes I question why, but that's not my problem. But it does draw attention, and that is an important element for his business, to make sure it's visible as people drive by. And but I would also encourage him, and I'll just say this candidly, Randy, that I'd like to see the building next door tied in color-wise, and with black accents, and something that, you know, that entrance to that store has been altered and changed, and it's just lousy. It doesn't do anything for the building or his building next door, so it aesthetically it could be improved. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if it adds up to much, but thank you for having me on the agenda and allowing me to speak to you tonight. Any more questions?
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Brandy, do you want to talk? I know you always like to.
I am Randy Kubish, Kubish Furniture and Flooring. I don't have to talk if you don't need me to talk. If you have any questions, I can answer some questions. I did go through the list of people that were on the email that Ken sent me the next day. I followed up with a phone call and an email to them all right away, and did receive responses back from most of them. And the general response that I had gotten was 1946 brick isn't historic, so they don't really have anything that would be a replacement. I did talk to one of the people that were on one of the links there, and he said most of the historical brick they have available is used for pavers in front of for paving sidewalks and driveways and so forth, not really for putting back on buildings. And sometimes people will put them on a new house. They'll put old brick on a new house as a fascia or facade, but not really for fitting into the side of a building that was built in 1946. So that's probably the biggest difficulty. And the brick that's on the building is failing. And the brick that's available that gets close to a match has a different texture and size, and it would really look pieced in. The bricklayer that I was working with was doing a project in Belle Plaine. He said, go up there and you'll be able to see that you can't patch it in. No matter what you do, it's gonna, whatever grout you're gonna try to use or whatever brick you're gonna try to use, it's gonna be noticeable. And that's noticeable kind of, but it's up on the second floor of a building, kind of hidden, so they didn't care as much. But on the side of our building, we want it to look as spectacular as we can. And I think my wife Lisa and her designer came up with a real good design for the exterior of the building to make it look polished and beautiful. And we're planning on adding about 4 to 6 feet of height on the corner to make it look more important, to make it look like it's bigger inside. You know, there's over 10,000 square feet of building space inside there, and it doesn't look that way when you look at it from the street. And then it gives us a nice, real clean sign, on the front. And the iron that they came up with for an awning is incredible. I, never thought of that myself. They did. And I think it would really add to the feature of the strength of the building, just the appearance of strength. The side of the building is deteriorating, and it's been an issue that we've been considering for some time. And it's now that we have to do it because it's getting worse. It's getting closer and closer to where, it's getting embarrassing. So anyway, we'd like to move forward and make an improvement to the building. And in the ordinance, it does say in Ordinance 726 that to repair or replace the brick whenever possible. And those words are right in the ordinance. It says whenever is possible. And it's not possible, so that's why we're doing the steps that we're doing. And we certainly appreciate that you guys are listening to us on this. And we would appreciate a four vote for it and 0 against approving.
I just have a couple questions. So that garage or whatever, the cinder block part, you're just gonna probably paint that? Or-
That'll be painted,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
And then what about those glass block windows?
Yeah,
the
there's
bottom?
some that need to be repaired, but,
You're gonna leave them?
it's up for grabs yet. I think
Okay.
that we're gonna keep them, but someone in the audience has a different opinion.
Okay. That's fine. That's all my questions. Do you have any, Rick?
Nope,
Okay.
I like it.
Well, I see the recommendation of the planning commission was 4-0 to approve, so I would look for a motion to, I guess, approve the resolution approving their recommendation.
And I will second.
I would recommend if you want to specifically see the brick, to maybe include that in your motion.
Yes.
Okay. So
I agree, the brick is better than the
the
stone.
brick is better than the stone?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
closer to.
Yes.
And we're happy to put the brick on.
Okay,
Brick is good.
so
So-
that would be approving the resolution with the brick, approving resolution Is it all numbered the same?
Yeah, we numbered the two options the same, just
Okay.
the one that would be for approval.
Okay.
And then add the condition that with the brick.
With the brick,
Versus
okay.
the stone. Yep.
So we're approving resolution 24-08-05-03 with the brick. Any other questions of the council or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Good
Thank you
luck.
very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good luck,
My
Randy.
wife Lisa and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna look beautiful.
Thanks, Maggie.
It will look good, actually, I think it's, yeah. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the small area plan cost estimates.
So we actually have online Chris Jansen from MSA, I believe.
We do.
Yeah, if you can hear me.
Yep, we're
Yes.
getting you loaded up, Chris. 1 second.
Hi,
All right. There you go. Do you need permission to share your screen, Chris?
That probably would work best, right? Instead of me telling you to go through slides, I can just share them.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And if you guys could let me know when you can see, you can see it?
tonight.
We can see it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to join this way tonight. I know Claire has normally been the one who's gone to your meetings, but she had a conflict this evening. I'm going to go through what's in your packet. Basically, there was one little change, and I'll note that when we get to it. Just looked like a calculation error as we were playing around with some of the different areas and the cost, just kind of differentiating those based on what you guys wanted to see. So first of all, here's the approved site plan. If the last time I was up there, we were at the event venue and had a really good meeting where we had a couple of the plans up for people to provide some feedback on and some other things. This is the one that came out of that, and this is the one that we used for the cost estimates. It has all those features laid out in there. Site quantities is kind of this next slide. So these potential project phases, as we tried to break them out, knowing that one of the first stages that you guys wanted to get to and that the POPs committee wanted to get to is that outdoor stage, which is stage 1, and then the stormwater area, which is basically stage 2. And then from there, there's the different features could be taken as they need to. Staging, area grading, and site work. So this is that, again, this kind of stage 1 outdoor stage. It's about 0.6 acres, sorry. It includes removing and replacing the topsoil, hauling in about 6 inches, a half foot of topsoil borrow, added 1 foot of embankment in the area, which could be done from the pond excavation if done jointly, hydroseeding. The estimated cost on that is $80,048 and change, and I'll go over that cost a little bit more in detail here on the next slide. The phase 2A, which is the stormwater treatment and pond area grading and that dirt work, that's about a 0.8 acre site total. It would include excavation, the embankment, some topsoil borrow, clay borrow, erosion control, hydroseeding. And the ultimate cost of that is estimated to be $252,934 and change. And again, that's grading and dirt work for that storm feature. The second stage of that storm includes some infrastructure, obviously, because it is going to function as basically a design like wet bottom stormwater retention feature. So it wouldn't be dry. It would provide some water feature for the area in the park, but it also would retain water when needed during storm events. Again, same size, 0.8 acres. Removal of the existing stormwater pipe, which is the white dashed line here that runs through the kind of the north part of the site. Reconnecting the existing storm sewer with basically at these 3 connection points. And then construction drainage features within the pond. So that would be probably the control features and that type of thing so that it would retain a certain amount of water and could build water when a storm event happens and then slowly let that water out at a non-storm event rate. And the estimated cost for just the infrastructure piece of that is $121,887 and change. So And this is this is a little bit of change. If you're looking at your packet, I think it says 90,000 there. It's 80. That's just that was just a calculation mistake as we were putting this into slides. But so your site grading is about 64. We accounted for some inflation. We accounted for engineering and contingency with that total estimated project cost of $80,048 and change. And again, that matches kind of this red area here that you saw in the stage area phase 1. The phase 2 grading for the pond and the stormwater construction. Again, there's the phase 2A, the pond area, and then the infrastructure, phase 2B, engineering and design, contingency, inflation again. And the estimated total project cost there is $382,685. This full cost estimate includes units measurements. So that's how the engineer that worked on this built this up. And again, this is basically just that stage area with the site grading matches that earlier shown estimate, but breaks it down a little bit more on how those estimates were created. And then the same thing for the pond and outdoor storage grading and that pond infrastructure. So just breaking that down into those unit descriptions, which if you've looked at these type of cost estimates before, basically these numbers are taken from, the quantities are from the design, and then the unit prices are based on what we've seen recently in the region or area with bids. So for those types of things, here's the bid came back at the unit price of this, and that's how you build your estimates. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So, yeah, the main idea here was to give you an idea of what, number one, would have to be done for site work, just to allow POPs to move forward. What you're seeing, is roughly at $80,000.
Yep.
We do still need to have a final engineering plan that we can put out to bid or put out to proposals for contractors to do the work. And really the discussion is, do you wanna just do the 80,000, or as Chris noted, there may be some, scales of economy if you do the pond and that at the same time, but then you're looking at between the two, including engineering and everything, you're, $470 some odd thousand dollars at that point. So, certainly that's expected, at least from the POPs discussion, to be on the city's dime, not their dime at this point. Up for discussion, obviously, but,
What's in that POPs fund, money-wise?
I do not remember the exact amount.
I think the number they quoted, they've got somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 in a combination of pledge and actual cash.
Okay, and that was all geared towards, I can't remember what the stage and the amphitheater part was, kind of that initial dollar figure. Do you recall that?
I think the number they floated during the presentation was somewhere between 800 and a million, 800,000 and a million.
Okay, so that's, their funds are essentially eaten up.
For that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to double check.
Is what they're saying for what they've planned and for what they've raised money for, that they have got their funds for what they intend to do.
Okay, but we don't have any bids or anything, that's just an estimate.
Just an estimate, yeah, we would need to have like an SEH engaged to pay them, the engineering costs in there. I think we're probably upwards of, $75,000 to actually create construction documents to put that out to bid.
Okay.
So that would be the next step to kind of move everything forward as far as actually prepping the site for POPs to basically start building their building.
Sure, okay.
So basically, that's gonna be for budget discussion.
So that was one of the things I know we talked at the last meeting about potential ARPA dollars of having roughly $40,000 to $45,000 left. And it's maybe this is the construction plans themselves are a good thing to put that $45,000 to, so that whenever the city decides or somebody else decides it's time to move forward, we've got the construction docs set and ready to go.
Because so we put in that pond, let's say, and that north end gets developed by
Whoever.
a private. Can we charge develop or fees back
Can we
to them?
assess fees
I mean,
after
for
the
better,
fact?
for worse, it's our land, and so
I'm just
I was gonna say,
wondering,
if we were a developer, if Ken's Great Development, his new developing company he's starting tomorrow, were to go out and buy 60 acres of land and put in the roads and ponds, every lot that he would sell to a developer would start to recoup some of his costs. And so we would fully have the same abilities if we were to put money into this area to whenever we decide to sell or who we decide to sell to, we could sell at whatever price point from $0 up to $1 billion that we decide that we want to sell that particular lot for, whether we're recouping costs or not at that point.
But there is the ability.
Yeah, it'd be no different than a private person who would develop it and then sell to recoup their costs as they sell.
You could, and the council might not remember, but 6 months ago, maybe not even that long ago, we did apply for some funding through the Scott County stormwater pool of money, and I don't know the exact timing and where that might be in consideration, but we'll certainly look to that. If that doesn't happen, look at other opportunities for funding. We have before for this pond, they haven't been successful, but yeah, anything we can do to obviously bring in other funds, we'll explore that between now and, you know, whenever Pops wants to officially move forward.
But because we own the site, we have almost unlimited control than if we didn't own the site.
Okay.
With that, though, it seems like every new project that involves housing and whatnot, and that's kind of what we were talking about in that initial design, there's TIF money that's being requested or wanted, or other state grants.
Yep.
For example, the
Yep.
any of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Would that, since the city owns that, and now they're asking for TIF or some type of state money grant, would that prohibit the city from trying to recoup some of those costs in the fees?
No, so let's say that somebody comes in and they want to build these townhouses and they're requesting a 50% TIF or whatnot on it, and so, or tax abatement. It'd be no different. So we would sell it at our agreed price. Let's say we agree to sell those lots at $200,000. Then the TIF and or tax abatement would then come against the future taxes, and so we would have controls. Really, I think the city is in the best possible position at this point because we actually control the land. If we were having to go in and put infrastructure in on somebody else's land, we start having to run into hurdles about what we can assess back. But because we own the land, we're basically operating as both the landowner and the city.
Okay, well, I was just curious because obviously it's being owned by the city, that
Yeah.
if there would be some type of state conflict and with tax dollars and everything else, but okay, that's nice to know.
Okay.
Well, I think we wanted to move forward, didn't we? I mean,
Tonight?
well,
I mean, we certainly can.
So I think what we would do is probably seek actual, I don't know if you'd call it a feasibility proposal to actually prepare plans and specs. You know, this is just high-level conceptual, but actually get a design that can be bid out. That would kind of be the next step, I would think.
Just for the site preparation.
Yeah, for these two items that we have the higher-level costs. I don't, Chris, would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a part of me that I think a grading plan was done as part of this. Now, I don't believe it's at construction level documents, but there was part of our scope was to develop this grading plan, and that's how we came up with some of these estimates. So I will have to double check on that, but I know Claire provided some next steps that are in your project update. And one of that was incorporate any feedback from tonight and then prepare the site and the grading plan. So we've kind of finished that site plan piece. We were looking at these cost estimates tonight because we know that those are something that we're definitely part of, like, hey, we need to really get our eyes around an estimate of cost. And then the grading plan, I believe is there, but yeah, it would need to be put in with specs and that type of thing in order to go to a bid. So that's kind of the next step. The other piece is that we want to put this back into the comp plan, get that rolling, because we kind of paused the comp plan to put this in as an appendix to that. So finish that off and get the comp plan adopted. But my understanding is that, you know, there is a finalization of the site and the grading plan that was on our plate.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So I guess from what I hear, we can, if the council wishes, we can certainly work with MSA to see what level of detail they have. And then maybe reach out to like SCH from there as our city engineer, just to see what potentially finishing those plans would cost us. And bring that back to you guys for a future discussion decision.
Sounds like a good plan.
Sounds good. Do you need a motion?
I don't think so, cause it's kind of just doing more back-end stuff at this point.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Next items are, well, under the miscellaneous, you got the, minutes from all the meetings. I'll go around the horn. Rick, do you have anything?
Just this, I got actually a couple questions. The joint power membership and financial update,
Yep.
what is it?
That is just the,
That's what we saw at
that's
the
Right.
last
basically,
meeting.
yeah,
Oh,
this,
so, yeah, so
this-
Sandy finally got that, okay.
yeah,
I
this,
got it.
this is their end of the year stuff, just
Yep.
kinda showing, what the losses were, looking like and, how kind of everything played out for the year.
Yeah,
over the
it's
last-
the final.
My second question, I don't know why I insisted on reading everything in this packet this time, and I ran across, something about post office, and I can't remember where it was.
I don't know if there's anything
Maybe,
about the post
Ken, that might be yours. Were you working on definitions of federal, or
Oh.
government property or something?
Yeah, so we will bring forward to you at the next meeting an introduction of an ordinance, amendment to the zoning ordinance that will add public buildings, as a definition, that will cover where they're permitted, where they're conditional. Yeah, I was on vacation last week, so I didn't have time to intro that here tonight. That will be on the next agenda.
Cool, and then I'll talk to you then. All right, that's it.
Okay, I don't have anything. John?
Just a quick question on the creamery site. What did we finally settle on with the railroad company parking there? And then did we realize that are all those vehicles and all those look like just normal cars part of the railroad? Or is it,
Yes, so.
is there anybody tracking that? So people just don't see it and think that they can park anything? Cause I've seen several trailers and whatnot on there that are not,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
guessing
fair.
are not
So,
railroad.
so basically, yeah, so the railroad's gonna be there for about 6 weeks, starting 3 weeks ago. They were paying us $1,000 a month. They've now paid up through August as well. Their plan is to be off here by the end of the 3rd week in August, from last that I heard. They're basically using it to store, company vehicles during the evenings and overnight, and then, employee vehicles during the day, as kind of like that swapped where they drop their own car off and go. As to keeping track of exactly how many vehicles are out there, that I haven't done. It's pretty easy to reach out. Pretty nice guy, he responds pretty quickly. And that's not a bad idea. I didn't even think about that of Joe Schmo deciding that, hey,
Everybody's parking.
Well,
parking
are
there
you
now.
talking about that camper trailer that was parked back there?
No, not just that. There was, this was on Saturday and Sunday, and I knew that the railroad guys were probably parking their personal vehicles there, but and maybe they were working on Saturday and Sunday, but I just,
They,
it
that's
looked
what-
like,
They're using it as
I
a
was
soup-
surprised at how many numbers of vehicles were there, and I had several people mention it to me too, like, what's going on over there?
So
You know?
they work in stretches like of 10 or 12 days at a pop,
Oh, okay.
and weekends included, and then they'll take a few days off, and then they'll come in and that's how they did it the last time. So I'm assuming that's, cause they're working from Merriam Junction all the way down to Montgomery
Okay.
on the line, so.
Nope, and it's right outside my window, and in the morning they come in and they even pick up some of the cranes and stick them on top of the trains, and then you start bringing it down. It's actually, watching them guys go to town, it's kind of interesting.
But yeah.
But that was a soup that was hanging out. He was sleeping, in there, and I don't know if it was a security guy, but he was actually in and out of there all night long.
Yeah,
Oh, so maybe they
again,
do it.
it's,
Yeah,
and if it only runs through August here, I don't think it's that big of a deal to, I mean, we'll know pretty soon once they're done. If-
because that was our thing that they'd be done before
maybe
those
done-
Zinke
yeah,
guys.
before
Yeah.
the Zinke, yeah.
You know, so, anything else, Sean?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Maggie?
I do not have anything this evening.
Just let you know that budget packets are basically wrapped up, and they will be in your inboxes tomorrow morning, and we'll also get a paper copy out for you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Ken,
Nothing more?
chief?
Nothing really. Tomorrow night's, night 2 night. We'll be out and about in town and.
How many
around.
spots?
We have 2 or 3 right now, and then, we'll be at Memorial Park. with,
Oh, you will?
Fire department's gonna be down there too.
Oh, good.
Stop by and say hello if you're
Gonna
around.
have any public works equipment out there or anything?
I don't know yet, maybe.
Come on, Matt, drive that big payloader out there and give kids rides up and down on it.
Is that it, Tim? Okay. Matt? Steve? Okay. I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second? Okay, go ahead.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then we have a special closed session after.
That was good for, 150 pages, that went pretty good.
Pretty,
Mayor, I just need to take a quick
No,
break.
no, no,
And
go
I have to
ahead.
go downstairs because this is
absolutely.